My guest this morning here on Jersey Magazine is Dr. Paul R. Lawrence, who joins us. He has a recently published book called Veterans Benefits for You. Get what you deserve. Dr. Lawrence, good morning and welcome here to WDHA and WMTR.
Good morning, Jim. Thanks for having me. Thanks for caring about veterans, too.
You're very welcome because it's very important. My dad was a veteran. Both my grandfathers were. So while I myself did not serve in the military, I come from, if you will, a military background. What is your own military background?
Well, I came from a military family, too. My father was a career Army officer, and we had two boys. My brother and I both served in the Army. I served in the Army through ROTC in college.
And how long did you stay in the service?
I was just in for 3 years. I was a finance officer, the Army's bankers. So it was a great experience.
Which I guess put to use your economics degree.
That was my thinking. Absolutely.
So as a veteran, as someone with economic background, you go out and you write a book about veterans benefits. What prompted you to do that?
Well, certainly. In the Trump administration, I served as the undersecretary for benefits. So, as part of the VA, the Department of Veterans Affairs. So, I actually ran all these programs. So, I had to administer them. And along the way, I learned about them. And I got an awful lot of questions from veterans. I don't understand these benefits. What are they? Can you explain to me? How comes it's so hard? So, when I got out, I said there must be a book available for this. I found out there really wasn't. So I wrote a book that made it easy to read, easy to understand, had all the benefits there. So, you could give this to your veteran friend, use it yourself, try to get these benefits. And don't forget, these aren't entitlements. These are things anyone can earn by serving honorably. So these are things the American public has provided for veterans. So they really should be able to access them.
The United States administers about $120 billion in veterans benefits each year. How much, if any, of that goes unused?
Well, it's not so much unused. You have to come and fill out an application. So by definition, this is used. But you always wonder, of all the veterans out there, how many more could be accessing their benefits? So that 120 billion goes to about 6 million veterans. There's 17 million veterans right now in the United States. Not all of them would be eligible for some of these benefits, but many would. So you do get a sense there are folks who could, use these benefits but are not.
The one that I was most familiar with was the GI Bill. That's how my dad went to college following World War II. I knew about the college aspect of it. I never knew about a home loan aspect to the GI Bill, Dr. Lawrence.
Right, the original laws called the Servicemen's Readjustment Act of 1944, which your father used, had a couple components. One is the education benefit, because as you know, virtually nobody in our country had gone to college at this time. So this was a game changer in terms of the knowledge and our skills in our country. But the other thing it had is the ability for veterans to purchase a home with no money down. It's called the home loan guarantee. This is a huge game changer because if you're not a veteran, you got to spend years saving for a down payment. But as a veteran now, you don't have to save for a down payment. You don't have to pay for private mortgage insurance, and you generally get a haircut on the interest rate. You pay a little bit lower interest rate. So again, the equity in your great home, security, safety, good community, kids in good schools, but also the equity can be used, and many veterans do, to start a business. And so it really has a lot of positive features.
You mentioned the college aspect of it, and my dad, in fact, was the first member of his family to go to
Sure.
college. In fact, my grandfather, I think he only completed eighth grade. He didn't even go to high school, and
Yeah.
he himself had been a World War I veteran. So that was huge in my family.
Right. Well, to be accurate, about 10% of our country had gone to college in 1940. So that essentially means we fought World War II with a functionally illiterate country. You know what I'm saying? We
Hmm.
really weren't very educated. Many had gone to high school. Not all of them had graduated from high school. Coming out of the war now, you look, so many more veterans go to college, and you say it's game changer for their families, and for the future generation. So this is a powerful benefit.
There were two things that I have come in contact with recently, and that was applying for Medicare and applying for Social Security.
Yeah.
And we had someone on a few weeks ago here on Jersey Magazine talking about Medicare. And I asked her at the time, why was it so complicated? I've never seen anything
Yeah.
quite like Medicare and the complications there and Social Security. Why do you think that applying for veterans benefits is so complicated, Dr.
Well,
Lawrence?
I like to think it's a little less complicated than what you experience, because most of them are pretty straightforward. But of course, there's rules and regulations and lawsuits and all. But here's a difference compared to those two. If a veteran needs help applying for benefits, they can get assistance at no cost from what's called a veteran service officer. These are people who trained in the VA processes, and you can get these from your state Department of Veterans Affairs, like the New Jersey Department of Veterans Affairs. If you contact them, you can get a service officer again at no cost. You can also get them from places like Wounded Warrior Project, American Legion, DAV, VFW. So there are folks who can help you through sort of this just, it's an unusual and not known process because nobody does it really more than once, whereas these service officers do this all the time.
And one of the things I think it's important to point out about here is these benefits that you're talking about in your book, they go far beyond the feel good benefits that are offered. And those are necessary, don't get me wrong, but there's a huge difference in a feel good discount, if you will, versus something that's really going to help a veteran.
That's exactly right. So the education, the home loan, we haven't talked about what's known as disability compensation. If you're injured or hurt while you're in service, there's payments to deal with, foregone wages as well as expenses you need to do that, right? So for example, you went off to the military, you say, hey, when I get back, I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to stand for long periods of time. Maybe you're hurt your back and now you can't stand for a long period of time. You can get a monthly payment, a tax-free monthly payment to deal with some of those issues. And finally, to build on all that, a lot of these benefits, have a family aspect. If something happens to you because of your service, your family will get benefits. So I encourage all veterans to think not only about themselves, many will say, hey, I'm fine. I don't need assistance. But don't forget, if something happens to you, maybe your family will. So think about them.
While I was too young to serve in Vietnam, that is the age group closest to me. And back in the 1990s, I did some volunteer work for some Vietnam veterans organizations in Manhattan. And I asked one of the administrators once why more Vietnam veterans did not use the services available to them from the Veterans Administration, the VA hospitals, and what have you. And he said to me that, and this was, I'm paraphrasing here, that many of the veterans that he was dealing with felt that the VA was just another extension of the government and what had sent them over to Vietnam. How much of that has changed, do you think, Dr. Lawrence, that
I hope
perception
a,
by veterans?
I hope a whole lot because it was just sinful what the Vietnam veterans experienced, right? In terms of, getting off the boat and people spitting on their uniform and then not wanting to deal with the VA because, service wasn't that good at that period of time. And I'm sure they felt exactly as you described. We tell everybody it is gotten a lot better. And if you had a bad experience, we encourage them to come back because it has gotten better. And everybody knows that. And so future generations coming out of Vietnam always talk about we've got to make sure this never happens again. So I'd encourage folks to go back and look. And also, I know they were greatly upset about the whole Agent Orange situation. It took a while for people to really understand what that was and get them benefits. And even that just extended to as recently as 2020. So there's a lot of benefits for folks who could have been affected by Agent Orange as well as their family. So if you have a loved one who served in Vietnam and passed by some cancer or something you don't understand, it could very well have been Agent Orange, and the family members would be entitled for benefits too. So again, come back and check and see if there isn't something there for you.
From your experience, what is one of the most overlooked benefits by veterans that they just don't even realize is out there?
Yeah, it's something called a pension. So let me explain. It sounds like retirement, but it's really not. It's a means-tested benefit that has to do with veterans who generally I call fall on hard times. So this often helps people get out of homelessness, right? They'll ask about your assets. And if your assets are less than $150,000, you can get a small monthly payment for VA to sort of deal with life. And so $150,000 sounds like a lot, but they don't count your home, your car, and a bunch of other things. And so it's really, the old veteran in your neighborhood, maybe the uncle in your family, you wonder how are they going to continue on? There's a pension, it's called a veteran's pension that might be relevant for them.
What do you think is the easiest way for veterans who are a little confused? We've talked about the confusing aspect of it. What do you think is the easiest way for them to navigate through this system?
Well, that's a tough question. So, normally you say go to the website, va.gov, but I will tell you it's probably a little bit confusing. Get the service officer that I talked about, the veteran service officer. Again, no cost assistance. That's the highly recommended way. And don't forget, those folks have seen it all, so they can tell you, here's what you do. And they also can tell you, hey, given what you experienced in the military, I bet you need this as well. And finally, on top of that, all states have additional benefits for veterans. So if you go to a state service officer, he or she will tell you, in addition to what you can get from the VA, don't forget the state of New Jersey, for example, offers these benefits.
One of the things that you talk about in your book, you elaborate on the importance of counseling and mental health for veterans. How important is that in your opinion?
Tremendously important. Please, 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 everybody knows the crisis hotline, dial 988. But what we really got to do is get people to think about their mental health and their issues well before that. So at VA, they would say, come to the VA regardless of your discharge and say you have these issues, get some attention. A lot of people were reluctant because they felt like, hey, you go there, all VA does is give me drugs. I don't want that. There's new therapies, there's new things that are not just drug based. There are other sort of things. So please, and I also think society as a whole has gotten more comfortable with understanding this as well. So please don't let that fester. Come early and get attention.
Yeah, I definitely think that we as a society are a little bit more comfortable talking about mental health issues. The last topic I wanted to discuss with you, and I don't know what your experience was upon leaving the military. I know you came from a military background, so maybe not as much as some others, but that whole transition from civilian life to military life, back to civilian life, that can be incredibly daunting, whether or not that individual, male or female, has been in a combat situation.
Right. Well, it's different, right? You're transitioning to a different group. You've been with one group 3 years, perhaps 20 years, perhaps. You learn the language. Now you return to civilian life. It is different. They have programs called transition assistance programs, but those are there. Many people have a great experience. Many people do not. I will tell you that one of the secrets is begin early. Start thinking about what you want to do, whether you want to go to college, for example, with the GI Bill, whether you don't, whether you want to go into the trades, what kind of job you want. I think the best advice for folks who are transitioning is start to think early and also ask other veterans for help. Veterans like to help other veterans. And so say, gee, I'm interested in your industry. Will you tell me about it? Will you introduce me to somebody? What else could I be doing? So it is, but I think the planning early really matters.
Veterans Benefits for You, Get What You Deserve is the name of the book. Dr. Lawrence, for WDHA and WMTR listeners who want to learn more, where's the best place for them to go?
Thanks, Jim. I'm on LinkedIn as my name, Paul Lawrence. That's probably the best place.
Great. And thank you so much for your time. This is a wonderful book and very important. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Jim. Have a good day. Have a great day.